Only get a knock at the door if the internet goes down. Dad, what's up with the Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Okay, we usually go until about 5 past, so I think we're safe for a few more minutes yet. We'll let people filter in. Oh, hi there, Joe. Oh, I'm McCann's here. Hi. For those that are still arriving, hello everyone. I see we're up to 34 now, which is great. We'll be starting at about like 5 past on the dot, really. So we're just giving a few more people, a few more minutes for people to get in, and then we'll get going. Gillian's not here, is she? It's just Carolyn, is it? From the Qlik side?
Yep.
Okay. When's your next one after this then, Carolyn? When's your next WebEx after this? Or meetup?
My office has one every Friday afternoon at like 12 for like a lunch. But you guys are free to run as long as you need.
Okay. Good to know. Right, Andrew, George, you both all good at your end?
Yep, all good.
Good to go, I think.
All right, fabulous. Well, I think we'll get started then. All right, guys, it's the Friday fortnightly thing happening. So we welcome you to Qlik Virtual Meetup Scotland, episode 3. Gosh, it feels like it's been a lot longer than that already, but we're only at episode 3. We're running every fortnight, and it's the 8th of May today. Obviously, we're aware that there are celebrations going on in the UK today with VE Day. So we do appreciate you coming along and spending some time with us. George and Andrew and myself. Episode 4 registration, we'll talk a little bit about that there, but if George or Andrew could pop the link into the chat so you can get registered for the next session, that would be brilliant to begin with. Okay. All right, so our agenda today, so we've had like some top guests in our first 2 episodes, and we're continuing that trend today. I'll let people decide whether we're bettering it or continuing at the same level. But there'll be a little bit of an introduction from myself, and I'll give George and Andrew a chance to say a few words as well. Carolyn Davis is here from the Qlik Luminary and Meetup programs to just talk a little bit about those programs that are happening within Qlik. I'm sure most of you know about it as well, but we do like to give Carolyn a bit of a chance to talk about it for people that are new here as well. We've got 2 brilliant speakers today. We've got, first of all, I've got Patric Lundblad. I think he's still on camera, I think, on the call there somewhere. Patric is pretty famous for his Viz Candy sessions, so we're looking forward to, without putting words into his mouth, some stuff talking about the visualizations that have come into April 2020 and also going forward as well. So that's usually some pretty cool bells and whistles that we get to see as well. And you will get a chance to grill Patric as well. My wonderful colleagues George and Andrew will help to do that at the appropriate time. For keynote number 2, well, it just gets better basically. We've got Steve Dark, yet another Qlik luminary on this show. I've known Steve for a long time in the kind of dev group and meetup scenario as well, and we've shared quite a few pints in Lund as well. It's been an experience knowing Steve, and he's got an instant sense app that he's been working on of late that he's going to, I guess, hopefully show us as well. And I believe there might even be an ability to download it for the people that are in the webcast today as well. So pretty cool stuff going on there. And very similar, we'll have a chance to ask questions to Steve as well. So feel free to pop them in the chat box, and we will pull out the questions as we go as well, and we'll deal with them at the end of each session. Episode 3 today. Episode 4, we've got all sorted as well in terms of our guests, so we want to talk to you a little bit about that, and then we can let you get off to enjoy your bank holiday festivities after that. So very much appreciate that. Okay, so next, let's see what we've got after that. Sorry, my phone kicked off in the background there. So just a word on who's presenting for you today. There's myself, Brian Boudin. I'm a Qlik luminary. I have been for 5 years now, and I work for a company called Dataglow IT that's based in the UK, obviously data and business intelligence consultancy. George, do you want to say hello and chat a little bit about yourself as well?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think when we kicked these off, or when we were starting to hatch the idea of these sessions, and we threw out the idea of let's have them every 2 weeks. We thought that this was going to be a tall order. It was quite ambitious, but pleased to say that everything's now falling into line. Less effort to set these things up. We seem to have a bit of a sausage machine going on that, and the amazing speakers just keep coming. So we've got plenty of material for probably months ahead. So we were just going to be running these for as long as we were in lockdown, but who knows? This could go on for a long time. Anyway, I won't hog all the airwaves. My name's George Beaton. I've been a Qlik luminary for 3 years now. I work for FTI Consulting in their digital science department. We do lots of stuff around data visualization and basically getting data to talk for our clients. Okay, hand over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, George. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. as Brian said, it's both a bank holiday and a big day, the 75th anniversary of VE Day. So it's really kind for everybody to dial in. And Rebecca Reck, second year as a Qlik Luminary. I work as a service delivery manager here for Differential Consulting in the UK. Work with Brian and George on a almost daily basis planning these events. So we're glad you're here and looking forward to this session. So I think the plan is we're going to pass back to Brian or Carolyn to give an update.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andrew and George. As I say, a real team effort here, and we can't do it without each other, I would say. So thanks again, guys. Your support is very much appreciated. So really just a little bit, we like to give a little bit of a recap of our previous sessions. We had a great episode last time out. We had Donald Farmer giving us an overview on the new analyst and the kind of tools that that needs to be in the kit box of an analyst nowadays that works with Qlik or any BI tool really. And we also had like the great energy of Mike Tarallo from Qlik as well, who gave us a little bit of an overview of some of the stuff that you maybe don't know about the April 2020 QlikSense release as well, and so especially some of the fantastic alerting functionality there. So hook up with Mike on Twitter and LinkedIn if you haven't done so already. Our attendance and registration has held really strong through the first two episodes. I mean, obviously we're expecting slightly lower today because of the the very special holiday nature of today, but we're still really impressed. I think I can see in my chat window 64 participants is pretty good so far. And if you missed episode 2, we do have the recording there, QVMS EP2 rec. And again, one of the guys will pop that in the chat for you in due course as well, if you haven't been able to catch up and you want to hear from Donald and Mike. So I just want to flip over to Carolyn for a few minutes, really, just to chat about the Luminary and Meetup programs, both of which are integral to everything that we are doing here. And I appreciate some of you might have heard this chat before, but it is really important that we do give the Meetup and Luminary programs the time that they deserve. So Carolyn, a word from you to just talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So for those who don't know, the Qlik Luminary program pretty much brings together the Qlik enthusiasts, whether they're customers, partners, or even just independent Qlik users. We kind of bring together these champions of Qlik and, kind of work together as a group. They lead a lot of, discoveries and data insights, and they work on a lot of really cool Qlik projects. So that's the Luminary program, which I help run with Jillian, my manager. And then we're also in charge of Qlik Meetup program, which is obviously this, and it's a program that we started, I think, a year or two ago, where we kind of help Qlik users run meetups for Qlik users by Qlik users. So it's completely free of any, marketing materials or sales initiatives, just a place for everyone to get together and talk about all things Qlik. So it's really cool, to see Luminary meetup captains. It's a great overlap, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's definitely been awesome with the Scotland meetup group to see them, leading the way with the first virtual meetup, and their program is great. So yeah.
Thanks, Carolyn. That's great, and we do really appreciate everything that the Meetup and the Luminary programs have given to us all as a community, and really the opportunity to be able to do these as well. So thanks very much again. So, I guess without further ado, we want you to get into our kind of main guests that we've got on the show today. Now, Patric Lundblad, I think the first time I don't have as adventurous a story as I did with Donald and Stephen, but I think the first time that I met Patric was when he did his spinning pie chart demo, and I think I was in the Qlik UK partner room at Connections, and I can't remember if it was still called QlikView Next at that point. Patric, you'll have to remind me, but certainly it was a start of a long-standing love affair with QlikSense for myself, and I'm sure it's even longer for you, Patric. So we're really excited to hear what you've got for us today.
Sounds good. I think it actually was QlikView Next 0.85 or something like that that we're demoing. But yeah. So before I share my screen, let's talk about who I am. My name is Patric Lundblad. I have the fancy title of visualization advocate, which means that I write blogs, I go on social media, I do presentations, and I just talk about what makes visualization great. My second job, because you can't live on only being famous on Twitter, at least if you don't have tens of thousands of followers, is being a lead product designer. So I don't go out there and market to customer. I don't go out there selling. I go out there talking to users and trying to understand what are they doing with our products and how can we make it better for them. So I'm the glue in between the architect who knows the technology, the UX designer, the visual designer, usability researchers who know about how to design and make it a great experience, and then the developers and testers who knows how to implement it, how to test, and so on. I'm the person in there in those meetings representing the user. I'm telling them if they're doing something good or if they're doing something that's no user will ever use this because they won't find it, they won't understand it, there's no benefit to it. So when I present today, I'm not only going to present to you what's new in the February and April and some part of the June release. I also will talk about why we did some of these things, and you can tell me if we did it right or wrong at the end. Because if we did it right, then we'll continue doing things in that way. So starting off, first of all, I really want to thank people who are on Twitter who post the ideas that they do with QlikSense, or if they're testing new features or doing any reviews. So this was something I saw the other day. Might want to try to zoom in a little so that you can see it better. Let's see here if it's possible. But you can see here, there's a bar chart here. We've seen before that people can add emojis to tables. Apparently, you can also add emojis to bar charts. So that's something that's really nice to see. People showing what you can do with QlikSense. So let's head over to the February release. Let's talk a little bit about what's in there, why it came in there, and how it came in there. So let's start with the trend lines. So hopefully most of you have at least started using the February release or potentially the April release. And as you notice, there are a lot of new visualization capabilities in there. And we spent a lot of time trying to make them correct because many of these capabilities are things that existed in QlikView before and they were good, but we tried to make them better. So when we added trend lines, we of course did it the normal way that you can have average, you can have a linear, you can have a second-degree polynomial, you can have a third-degree polynomial. It is the same things that you had in QlikView. What we tried to add on top of that was really an ease of use. How do I add a trend line in the easiest way possible? So if I go in here, if I go to the measure, it's very similar to QlikView. You have the button Add a Trend Line. So QlikSense is built on what we call progressive disclosure. We do not give you a QlikView screen with 365 options. We try to give you a couple of options. And as you dig in there, you'll get more options coming. So for example, in here, we have a label, my trend. You have the type you can put in here, second, third, and so on. And what we also have is this smartness where we try to do the best out of the box. So for example, with colors, we try to put a good color in there based on the theming that you have in there. But you can also turn it off. You can use any one of the colors from the theme, or you can put in your own hex value. And then you have some more options around, for example, having a dashed or a straight line. So just trying to make it as easy as use as it was in QlikView, but also something that you can grow with and come into. It's not there directly. You just click the add trend and you get the option of going in there. So this is a very common design pattern we do, progressive disclosure, not try to show everything at the beginning for a user. So that's why you're going to have many times these auto buttons and toggles and so on, where we try to make something smart. If you don't like it, turn it off, make changes to it. So the one thing here important with trend lines is that this is not something done on the front end, which many partners do. Trend lines is something we implemented on the engine, which means that any partner out there or any customer out there, feel free to look up the API, use the trend line calculations within your own extensions, within your own software and so on that built upon the engine. So you don't have to implement this in the client. So that's the good part on this trend line. It is an engine capability with APIs. Another thing we added in was the ability to have more measures to a tooltip. So many times if you have a chart, you want to have some additional information in the chart. So for example, we don't only have sales in this bar, we also have cost of sales, freight, customers, countries being sold to. And similar thing here, it's something that you of course could do in QlikView, you can do it in many other softwares. How can we make it as easy as possible? How can we make sure that a novice user who are not really used to this should not have it the first thing that they're seeing? Instead, it's something that you opt in and you get more information about as you go in there. So for tooltips, it's the basic tooltip. That means we have just the information that's available inside the chart, the data we're using. If you turn off the basic, you have the custom one. We try to make it easy so that you can add in a measure here. For example, margin. You can go in here, similar as with a measure. You can also say what type of formatting do you want to have. Going out here, you can see I now added in margin. So one thing in here that we did, that's where Ami come in as a product designer, that we have told the architects, hey, we want to have in more measures. They of course could have done it in the most simplest way possible. When I talked to them about, okay, how can we make sure that also partners and extension developers get benefit from us implementing this, we came up with the idea that, okay, let's use something called attribute expressions. The first thing we noticed then what attributes expressions didn't have number formatting. So of course, we added number formatting to attribute expressions now instead, meaning that any partner out there or customer who's using attribute expressions in their own extension can now also use number formatting. So that's what I try to do as a product designer. I try not to implement the easiest way possible for a feature. I try to think about how does this feature benefit the most amount of people in the oddest places of the Qlik world. So this is something easy to add in multiple measures, and we now also have number formatting on attribute expressions. I'll come back to that one slightly later in the April release and talk about what that gives us. So this is actually from the April release that the number formatting attribute expression came in. Then we have line chart styling. So we released a new line chart in February. Hopefully, you haven't really noticed that it's a new line chart. It is rewritten from scratch using Picasso, using Enigma, and many other fancy names on libraries. But for an end user inside an app, it should be a smooth upgrade where you don't even notice that we exchanged the old line chart with the new line chart. If you get any bugs and any problems, feel free to contact us and point out what's the difference between the old one and the new one. But with the new one, we've done some improvements. For example, you can have vertical orientation. We did improvements to line width. We did improvements to if you want to have a solid or a dashed line, if you want to have a smooth or a straight line, and also do you want to have some settings around the data point size. So implementing this, we've tried to make it as simple as possible and not clutter the UI. So what we've done so far is that we introduced a styling panel. This was here also for the bar chart and I believe the pie chart in earlier resets. So this is our way of, similar to responsive disclosure, having an option where you can slide in and you can get more options. So it's similar to the way we released the map a couple of years ago, maybe 1 year ago, 2 years ago, where we have the layers, where each layer is its own sub panel. So there's a panel here where you can slide open, you have the settings in here, instead of just having this list as a humongous list of options. And sadly, no, this is not as easy as an extension developer to use. That is something we're still looking into, how you can have these type of UI components also available. But being in here, we have what we call global settings. I can, for example, increase the line thickness of all the lines. I can make them dashed if I want. And I can also make them monotone, meaning slightly more curvy and nicer looking. Not something I advocate, but people want fancy charts out there. Now, this was an easy way of modifying all the lines. Usually when you do some software development in this area, you, for example, do a setting for all the lines and the user can't make any changes to them. Or you do a setting per line. So for example, we could have added these settings into the measure, and for each measure, you would have to go in there. You would have to change the line thickness for all of them. You would have to change the line type for all of them. What we decided to do, and this is new from the February release, and we hopefully going to do it in other places, is use some design pattern we call overrides. Meaning you have a global setting for all the lines. So whenever you add in a new line, they will inherit these settings. You don't have to go into that new line and make the changes. But then we also have an override where you can see which are the measures I'm using right now. So for example, let's take the sales one. This, I want to have style in a slightly different way. I want the line to be even thicker, and I want the line to be solid. And now I'm overriding the global setting. So this line here has this setting. What if I'm making changes here? I can still adjust all the other lines with one setting. So overrides is something that you probably will be seeing in many new features and functions that we release. Hopefully you like it. If there are any problems with it, please let us know and tell us if there's anything we missed and so on. But really making it easy for you to make fast changes to everything. At the same time, you have full control over how sales is actually shown in the chart. And I see there's some chat, and I'll read the chat after my presentation. Another thing we added was pivot styling. So this is, to be honest, partially something we've kind of missed out on. So we have for a long time in the pivot table been able to color the cells for inside the pivot table, but you haven't been able to color the dimensions. So something we got feedback from that this was missing. So we added it in as a simple option to go in here and put colors on the different dimensional values. And then we also added some, and this, to be honest, was something where I was presenting on stage for Swedish partners. And they told me that, oh, by the way, why can't we change the alignment in a pivot table? And I was standing there up on stage, of course, knowing everything about the product, went into the pivot table, went into text alignment, and realized there is no text alignment on the pivot table. So we added in the text alignment on the measure here. You can now go in and align the values in the cell towards the right, left, and center. Currently not on the dimension level. This is just on the measures inside here. So these here on the top are still center aligned or left aligned over here. But that's something we're also looking at. Steve, we'll come to that later. Yeah. So some improvements to the pivot table, also around styling, font sizes, and so on. So table indicators. Normally you have a table. It looks pretty boring. If you want people to draw attention to the table, if you want to highlight that something is more or less important, you have the option of adding in indicators now. So before, if you watch Patric Nordström's 10 tips, of course, you could have this before. You used ASCII signs and you used a lot of odd tricks, and you could have indicators and charts inside the table. So we started working on indicators. We are working on something else for the table that I can't talk about. And indicators, trying to make it as simple as possible, is just, I want to represent this value as an indicator instead of text. I can either show the value or I can't show the value. And I just want to have, for example, symbol. I can also apply the color to the value. And then very similar to the gauge and the KPI, I can add in some thresholds here where I can say which color and which symbol do I want to use depending on the value. Let's drag this down a lot. So for example, back to 10. So now you can see here, table with indicators in here, really easy to use. There might be some power functions that you're not able to use, but I would say most business people would have no issue trying to create something like this. And then some options also around, for example, if the indicators are to the right or to the left. Yeah. Ease of use indicators inside the table. We also are working on something called, yep. We are also working on something called extension bundles you've seen before. So if you haven't used it, we sometimes release objects, particularly, for example, objects from the community. Hey, radar chart is here. Very nice addition to our product. But there are also other in here, for example, in the dashboard bundle, we have variable inputs, we have share button, visualization, and so on. What we also do is we look at the usage of these. We look at how popular they are. We look at how often they are being requested by customers and users and community. And if there is one of these objects that's really popular, we start thinking about how can we make it native. So in this case, we had a dashboard bundle object called navigation and action button, which was based on Stefan's button. So we put it in here, we made it into a bundle one. We got a lot of feedback about what we could do better. So now in the February release, we also added in the button object here as a native chart. Now, what happens if you use the bundle object during the last year? So in this case, since it's actually a new object, it's not as easy to migrate or upgrade, and customers may not want to migrate or upgrade. We are actually keeping the old button in there for one release, meaning that in the February release, when we released the button, you still had the old button in here. Then I believe in the April release, or was it the June release, we will start hiding this old button just so that you don't create new ones. We will not remove them from our product, meaning that if you have a dashboard using the old button, it will still work. It's just that we don't want to encourage people creating new buttons. If you really want, you can copy and paste an old button, but we want people to start using the new button, and we want them to, when they have the time, go in there, do a convert or a replace on the old button with a new button, and do their upgrade at their leisure. We don't want to force them to use the new button and have to go in and change their apps just because they made an upgrade. So this is a different scenario compared to a line chart where we have an easy one-to-one migration. This is a harder one-to-one migration, meaning that you pick and choose the time you want to upgrade. But I think it's something like 1 or 2 years, we will deprecate the old button. There will be advance notice so that you can know when you need to upgrade. But in the meantime, feel free to use the old button. And with the new button, there are settings, for example, background color, background images. There's also the actions and navigations you have up here, very similar to the old button, just more styling options compared to what I thought was a really boring Windows gray button in the earlier releases. Then we did something called modifiers. So November release, we released the accumulation modifier. Then in the February release, we did the moving average and difference. Moving average is an easy way of calculating, for example, a rolling average. So for example, in here, you can see we have the modifiers. I can go in here, I can pick the moving average, and I can also say how many steps. I can agree that full should be the standard value. Right now it's custom. You can go in here, you can do full, you can do custom. It's very similar to QlikView. And the difference modifier is just looking at a delta between the previous value, showing, for example, this line chart is the actual value. The bars down here is showing, did the value go up or did the value go down, and by how much compared to the previous value. And I'll come back to the modifiers later on in the April, because we had one in April release also, and I'll talk a little bit more about the design of the modifiers. And then also some improvements to the map charts. So for example, image symbols. So you can see here, we have the French flag here. This is not conditional images for now. This is just a simple image that you can add on top of here, picking it from the library. You also have some small options in here. So for example, you could rotate the flag if you like. But it's a start in here, and things we're looking at is, for example, conditional images. We're still debating from a design perspective, should the images be loaded together with a load script similar to QlikView, or should there be options inside the app to do conditional images from the image library? So things that we're working on, but you're not going to see that directly. And then I can also say that we had for a luminary meetup, I think it was in November in Lund. You get to learn a lot from the luminaries about what's good in your product. You get to learn even more what's bad in your product. So one of the things I were told was that in the geoanalytics map, the extension, you had a possibility in layers to turn selections on and off. We didn't have that in the native one. I got told that by one of the luminaries. So I made a phone call to Gothenburg. I asked them, why don't we have that? They said, give me a day. And then a day later, we had it. So direct feedback from the luminary saying, I'm missing this in the product. We talked to the developers. It was easy to add. Now we have it in the product also. So typical feedback from the luminaries going straight into a product. Hope you're happy with that. And then one of the things that I really dislike made it into a product, but hey, I can't pick and choose everything. So you have the funnel chart here, which is normally a funnel showing you something big becoming smaller through stages. For example, it could be a sales cycle. You have your prospects, you have your follow-ups, you have your sales and so on. There were some people wanting to have the ability to sort the funnel. So we have added that functionality, which now means it becomes more of a vase chart than a funnel chart. But yes, there are customers out there are users out there who have a need for this type of chart. Hence, sometimes we have to break best practice and make it allow people to do that. And then getting towards the end, one of the things we released in February as an experimental thing is a new introduction to the themes. So in here in the themes, we added in the font family, meaning that inside the charts, you can add in what font you want to have when you switch, or what font family you want to have when you switch theme. So for us, this is experimental. It's a start. And the reason why we added it into themes is so that you can start working with it and using it directly. But we are looking at adding in the same type of setting inside each object. So object per object or app per app, you can also make the font family changes easily. So you don't have to go with theming. So that's on the roadmap. Experimental is the easiest way for us to start. And then lastly, in the February release, we also added in Qlik geocoding for operations. So this is on our cloud solution. So adding in the geocoding from Analytics and making it into cloud so that you can do lookup, for example. That's my daughter coming home screaming, "Calm down." So yeah, this is on cloud, and it's coming on Windows, also something we're looking at. So that's what we did for the February release. I think that's a lot. We tried to follow it up with the April release with a lot more. So I'm going to go directly in there. And if you feel that I'm going fast, it is because it's so much to present. So one of the things we did was we added in one more bundle extension. As I said before, bundle is a way for us to release early, release something where we can start testing, and then you can give feedback to it. And if there's many users, there's a big request, we'll make it native, make it even better. So the org chart is, as you can see, it's a hierarchy. You have a person at the top, you have two people beneath it, these two here indicating it. The minus just indicates that it's been expanded. And now with the pause menu, I can expand it or club. So Jan Collins has 7 people beneath her. Then you can go down here. You can drill even further down. So a really easy to use chart for showing, for example, an organization, and also being able to fit it back in here. We're doing some improvements for the unit release. So if you have issues with having to pan around, zoom around, that will be better in the unit release. The other thing that many people don't know about is how to set up this type of org chart. So I'll talk slightly about that. So in this case, what you do is that you add in 2 dimensions. The first one being your node. So the actual card you want to display. So an employee, for example. And then the second dimension here is the parent. So for example, on the row of Joanne Collins, I would add in the name or the employee ID of Eric Presley as the reports to. So node and parent is the way that you set up this org chart. Yeah. Then we got feedback that one of the things people are missing from QlikView is the ability to share bookmarks. So we're adding the ability in both Windows and our cloud solution to share a bookmark. The one thing here to think about is that to be able to share a bookmark, today bookmarks are private or they are published, but for an end user to share with another end user, we added in the same thing as with Sheets, we added in a community section on the bookmark. So you have public bookmarks, my bookmarks, and then you have also a community section of bookmarks when you create them. So in order to share between one person to another person, you're gonna have to make your bookmark, community bookmark, to be able to share it. something that we're still looking at improving, but we don't have, for example, a shared file that we have in QlikView where two people can just share with each other. And also working with bookmarks, we decided to make some improvements since we're in here and we were adding some options. For example, if you share, you really want other people to see the same thing you're seeing. So if you're using, for example, a pivot table, you've expanded or collapsed node, now you can also save the layout so that when another person opens up the bookmark, they get to the same type of pivot table with the same what's open and what's closed. We also got feedback that when people are using default bookmarks, they might still want to drop the end user in the app overview. You just want to have selections applied. Or for example, you have a bookmark that's called last year or latest year. You want them to be able to apply it without having to move to a certain space in the product. So if you didn't know it before, you have always been able to apply a bookmark with selections only by right-clicking. But of course, users do not notice that. So that's why we added in as an option when you create a new bookmark to say, do you want to have the sheet location with this bookmark or not? So without the sheet location, we only apply the selections. With the sheet location, we apply selections, and we also navigate towards the sheet that was done on. So you're probably going to recognize a lot of this from QlikView, and you're going to see more options in here with bookmarks similar to QlikView. Then we have the relative modifier. So this is a modifier to easily calculate the absolute values towards the relative. For example, you want to see how much sales are per product compared to everyone. You want to see, for example, across 2 dimensions, how many percentages they are, or for example, in a line chart. Now, what I really like with this modifier is that this is something that is not on the back end. This is something we did on front end. You have always been able to do these type of expressions by using set analysis, by using the expression language and so on. But what we try to do is almost like a wizard where we create the expression for you and you can then use it. In this case here, I have a bar chart. It supports modifiers. I have the bar plus chart, which is an extension. It doesn't support modifier. So what I can do is here is that I can go into some sales. You can see here I have a modifier on top of this here. You can see that I picked the relative number 1. I want it to apply to current selection. I want it to respect one of these dimensions in here. And it should respect the year. What does that mean? Yes. So if I go in here, I actually have an output expression, meaning that from all these options in this wizard that you almost probably didn't notice what was a wizard, we're actually generating this expression, and in the front end here in the chart, we're replacing some sales, and this is what we're sending to the engine. But at the same time, I can take this one here and I can copy it, and I can go into this one in here and I can open it up. I can remove some sales. I can paste it. I can ignore the error in expressions. Yes, I've noticed that, but it does actually work. When I apply it, voila, I'm using exactly the same expression inside another chart. So having added this on the front end means that we can now tell you how we created that expression, and you can copy and paste it in other places. Now, how do I use that? I go to the community. I look at questions on Qlik community. For example, there is a person here wanting to have a stacked bar chart. He's managed to succeed to get it to work for 1 dimension, but he also has a drill down dimension. So whenever he drills down in towards the next level, he's not getting it accumulated to 100%. Now, I could spend a lot of time on community and search for all the different solutions out there by many other smart people. Or I could load up the April release. I could load in some example data. I could cheat and do exactly what he wanted. And I could paste the expression because he's not having the April release. He's having an earlier version. But by pasting the expression in here that I generated in the April release, he was actually managed to be able to solve it. So that's what I really like about these modifiers is that not only can you use them in the latest release, you can also tell people on Qlik community in early releases, this is how to do your accumulation, this is how to do your moving average, this is how to do your relative modifier. By just loading in some example data, using it in one of our versions that supports it, and then just showcase how brilliant you are. So really fun with modifiers. Might expect to see some more in there. But I would say this is very different compared to QlikView, where in QlikView, this was actually done on the engine instead. So in this case, we decided to go on the front end because we thought it would give more value. And then also something blast from the past, sheet triggers that we had in QlikView. So you can see here, when I went to this sheet here, you notice that I had 2 selections appearing. So down here on the actions button, you can see now I have some actions that I can apply whenever I move to this sheet. So one of the things that we kind of noticed when we did this was that we forgot to add in one option. And this has been noticed by many customers. So if I go in here, if I go to actions, if I add in actions, if I move down here, you can see that we have, for example, select possible values in a field. So this allows me, for example, to select 2012 in the year field. Well, what happens if I want to select the latest year, or if I want to select the year, any sales that is above 3 million or anything like that? So in the June release, we are releasing select possible matching values in a field. That's a mouthful. But before that, you can actually use something called a dynamic bookmark together with sheet trigger to get the latest year selected. Now, I don't know if you heard about dynamic bookmarks. I believe it's been in the product for 5 to 6 years. Personally, I noticed it just a year ago when I watched a video by Christoph Schwartz. And I'm going to show you what's the difference between a dynamic bookmark and a static bookmark. So in this case here, I have a filter pane, a list box. I'm going to select 2012. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new bookmark. So 2012 is my latest year. Let's create it. Let's apply it. So if you go to a bookmark and one of that you have in here. So for example, if I expand this bookmark, press the I, you can see we actually show you the location. We show you the layout if you have anything like that. We show you where it goes to which sheet. We also show you the set expression being used for this. Meaning that if you have a bookmark, you can copy the set expression and you can apply it to another chart or any expression, and you will have the same type of selection as the bookmark. So this shows me here that 2012 is stored in bookmark. But how do I do to store the last year? And this is the part where I almost are unable to explain it, but I can use a compound search expression as part of the list box or a table. So I can, for example, say that I want to select in year, and I want to select the max value in year, meaning 2012. So if I press enter now, without actually clicking on 2012, you can see here 2012 is selected up here. It doesn't look any different compared to any other type of selection. If I go in here and I create a bookmark and I call it latest, great. Then if I expand it here, you can see that the sex expression is actually my search string in here instead. Meaning that whenever I open up this sheet and there's a new year, I will always have the latest year selected. So that's an easy way of creating a bookmark that a user can apply and always get the latest value or the latest quarter and so on selected, or the highest value, sales above 2 million, whatever you're interested in. So big difference between a static bookmark and a dynamic bookmark. And I learned about it a year ago. Maybe people have learned about it before. And then come out towards the end. So some improvements for a pivot table. So once again, we added things to the pivot table. In this case, it's sort by first measure. Similar to QlikView, you have the option to sort. So this here in the pivot table is a sort by first measure where you can turn it on. You can do ascending, descending. You're going to have subtotals turned on. And then also some table improvements. These are small ones. So for example, if you have a URL, you can now choose between when you click on search, do you want to search on the values or do you want to search on the URL? And also the table in here on mobile, if you had the first column freeze, if you started scrolling, the first column was never frozen. It didn't actually work on mobile. Now we have that as an option also. And then some short improvements. As I said before, we did the attribute expression improvement that we can number formatting, which means that in our charts, where we, for example, do color, where we do size, we can now also add in number formatting. So in the April release, we're starting out with a map. So in the map now, when you create a color in here, color by measure, you now also have a number formatting option in here. And this was April for the map, but we are also adding in more charts when it comes to color by measure and sizes for the June release. So that you can also, for example, in a bar chart, if you color by measure, you can have it formatted correctly. And then towards the end, KPI. So this is a complex one. Many people have complained that they have no control over the sizes of the KPI. What we did was we tried to always be responsive. So this bottom row here, you can see we try to always fit the value inside the box. Now we added in 2 more options. We added in something called fluid. What that means is that what we try to do is we take the size of that font based on the size of the object. So the more squares you use, the larger the text becomes. What this means is that you have 2 KPI objects who are exactly the same size on the sheet. They will have the same text size no matter the difference in length. And we also, for the people who want to be in control, have a fixed size where you can put in if you want to have large, small, or medium. And this size won't change depending on screen resolution, depending on object and so on. So more of a fixed version. Yep. And then lastly, how do you get things into the product? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the June release, but before that, I'm going to do a shameless plug about the Qlik community. If you haven't been in here before, if you log into Qlik community, you have something called Qlik Product Insight and Ideas. So if you go in here, if you expand this tab, you have something called Ideas. So this is the idea section where you as a community member can go in here and you can post your ideas that you have and you can like them and you can comment to other. And if you look here at the top ideas, I can tell you product management, me and many other people in Qlik are going in here looking at what is being upvoted, what you're missing the most. For example, in QlikSense, QlikView, or in one of our other products. So a great way of getting your voice heard by showing what you like and what you want to have into the product. So some of these things we are working on, they are on the roadmap and they may come in as soon as possible. You can also do it the other way. You can go on Twitter. You can open up your mind and tell us what is wrong with our product, or what are you missing in our product. So for example, Steve here wants the ability to left, center, and right align text. So time for the sneak peek of the June release. So it didn't make the April release. It made the June release, hopefully, if nothing goes wrong. So if I go in here, if I go into a list box, you can see here we have a text alignment. If I turn it off, yes, I can have my numbers left aligned if I like. So that's 2 ways of talking about what you're missing in a product, either by going out on social media, talking about other people, getting us informed about what you're missing, or going to the Qlik community, looking at ideas, posting your own ideas, and upvoting and so on. And sadly, it wasn't that much candy. I tried to do candy in my presentations, so I'm going to have to end showing you some typical example of Swedish candy. So that's all from me, and I think there are a lot of questions in the chat. Yeah.
That was fantastic, Patrick. Thank you very much for that. There's a lot there, a lot to get through. There's been lots of love in the chat for you.
Yep,
so
happy to hear that.
I'm gonna scroll back and start with well, Steve's been busy. We've got Steve on next. Steve could probably ask questions himself, but the first one he came up with was he was asking around the is it possible to have a line through non-sequential data? So Steve, jump in if you want to clarify that. That was right at the start.
Yeah, probably the second sheet. You had a bar chart which had a line through it, which my pet peeves when I see people doing it on site. I assume you didn't build that sheet.
Let me go quickly there. trend lines one? Or add meshes to tooltip?
Yeah, it was around then. It wasn't one of the charts you were actually showing, but one of the other ones on the sheet.
I think you're gonna have to tweet me or PM me afterwards if you can find exactly where it was. Unless you want to spend
I'll
5
find
minutes
it on the video. Yeah.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so Joe easily chimed in with a question around a container that can hold a collection of buttons. So that's an idea for you.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Yeah, there was a few questions, but both. Well, I think Utam, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, thought that the plus and minus icons with number may create some confusion, and then there was a couple of people that agreed with that. So that might just be a little bit of feedback there for that.
Yep.
Just one of my questions around there is if you want to start looking at much bigger organizations, so people with hundreds of people in an organization, what's the performance like on that? Has it been tested?
So we are actually pretty happy about the performance, except for IE11.
Okay.
We have to use something called polyfill. I'm not going to be technical, but that's really the main limitation on the org chart. For any other browser, I think the performance is okay, but since we support IE11, we have to done some limitations around that.
Okay.
But I will also say that size, estate, and so on, you probably can't really show a massive hierarchy. So that's why this is the drill down sideways. Once we drop support for IE11, then probably we can have the entire org chart showing up.
Yeah. Okay, understood. Good. Relative modifiers. See a question we had here. Do relative modifiers work as master measures?
No. So when you save measure with a modifier, we only store the measure. We don't store the relative one. So the easiest way here would be to add a modifier on top of it, copy paste the expression, add it to your measure instead, removing the modifier and then saving it. Well, we did not manage to easily save it to the master measure. Still something we're looking into, but inability of just being able to ship it, sometimes we have to do these type of limitations.
Okay. And we have a question here around bookmarks. So I think bookmarks is going to be a hot topic because the bookmarks functionality in QlikView is fantastic. It does everything that we need it to. So from Jonas Valiskog, in QlikView it was possible to export and import bookmarks easily. Any such option on the cards for Sense? So importing and exporting.
I would say it's outside of my area, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Right, these are ones I looked here.
Yeah, that was a good summary, George. I mean, one thing I was going to ask Patrick, a lot of the chat is around QlikView. People are very happy that a lot of QlikView features are now finding their way into the Sense product. Your R&D are lifting QlikView features into Sense on a regular basis, because it wasn't always the case a few years back.
I wouldn't call them QlikView features into QlikSense. I would call them wanted by customer and partner features. Okay. So it's more of a confirmation that yes, customer and partners are missing these type of features, probably because they've used them a lot in QlikView and it has solved a lot of problems. Hence, it comes into Sense also. But the way we implement it may or may not be the same way as QlikView.
Good point.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are we handing back to Brian to introduce the next guest?
Yes, I'm still here. Yep. So you can pass it back to me. I'll do my thing where I put up one slide and then hand over to the next person. How about that? That sounds good. Thanks for that, Patrick. That was awesome, and we really appreciate your time and contributing everything that you have. It's been great. So thank you very much. Okay. Right. So my job is really easy. I just have to be here for a couple of seconds and introduce my very good friend Steve Dark, who I've known for a long time, Qlik Luminary and Managing Director at Qlik Intelligence. I'll let Steve take the floor and tell us what he's going to talk about today, but I think everyone's really looking forward to what you've got for us, Steve. So over to you.
Thanks very much. I've got pretty much the exact same slide in a moment, so apologies for that. Okay, is that sharing?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to be showing you today is an app that I've come up with, and I'm sure other people have come up with very similar ones. I had one back in the day in QlikView, but I've created it recently in Sense and been using it a bit with clients, and I wanted to share it with you, and we'll be giving a link out later so people can download it and have a look. But first, quick, who am I? For those that don't know. So self-confessed Qlik geek. So been playing about with the product for a long time now, and set up Qlik Intelligence over 10 years ago. And we focus entirely on Qlik products, and obviously more and more Sense these days. Also Qlik Luminary and Community MVP. I think one of the few people that's actually got both badges, so very happy to be recognised by Qlik in those ways. And just wanted to say on sort of the Qlik Luminary front, quite a lot is often said about what the luminaries bring to the ecosystem, and it's always nice to get that feedback. But I just wanted to sort of chip in with what we as luminaries get out of it as well, and just the ability to get together with people that sort of know and respect and share ideas, and that is really, really valuable to me, and something I really appreciate. So thanks to the team who run the Luminary program for making that possible. And yeah, going back to Patric's, how you can get sort of things into the product, you can also sort of catch him when he's had a couple of beers and put something to him there. Or you can be a speaker at a virtual meetup, because I've got another one, which I'll mention in a minute if he's still on. The other thing, and probably where people might know me from most, is my blog. And I don't do stuff that's just deeply technical typically, but what I do try and do is put simple things together in ways which are perhaps interesting and people hadn't thought of previously. And so just to illustrate the sort of thing I have on the blog. Got an example where you can set up to recognize if you've got a new customer in your database, and you might recognize this new customer, obviously. And obviously, Qlik Alerting was released this week, which is going to be sort of baked into the product for sending out alerts. But prior to that, it obviously wasn't there. So I've got a recipe on the blog, which you can go and find and work your way through, which shows you how you can recognize something happen in your data, have that go into your Qlik app, obviously, but then go out and talk to another service. There's one called If This Then That, which is great for pulling together different bits of home automation, and I use it for various bits and bobs, and it's great to be able to tie that in with Qlik. And obviously now we've found the new customer, we want to notify someone about it. But better yet, with this integration that I've published on the website, we can get it to play We Are the Champions on the Office stereo whenever we spot a new customer in the data. So it's things which are sort of thinking outside the box, might not be useful for everyone, but it can hopefully spark ideas. So if you go to the blog, you'll find that recipe and other tutorials which hopefully will be useful. Just to say also, I've got half an eye on the comments as well. So if you do want to sort of chip in with anything, please feel free. May not keep on top of them, but I'll certainly sort of try and keep an eye out. So on to what I want to share today, what I'm calling the Instant Sense app, because hopefully it's pretty near instant to set up. Something I found sort of through the time I've been doing this is there's one sort of holy grail in Qlik that people seem to strive for, which is the app that you can sort of just take and sell to lots of different customers and everyone use the same app, because it's all just data at the end of the day. And you end up with a one-size-fits-all solution, which is great because you can just keep rolling it out and out and out. But in my experience, that doesn't really exist. It's a bit of a unicorn that people try striving for. And I've seen things implemented which are better or worse and come closer to that. But at the end of the day, it's a bit of a unicorn, or seeing the meetup we're having today, a bit like this fella. It's very difficult to get right and have something that works for everyone. And I find you tend to sort of customize things to make sure it's exactly how people want. So what have I got in my application here? So it's really sort of a prototyping app, which allows you to very quickly look at the data that you've got and just decide what you might then take through onto a production application. So I'm not advocating it as sort of great design, and obviously I'm following Patrick, so I wouldn't even attempt to sort of say, well, this is great design and sort of that side of things. It's just a way of looking at the data relatively quickly and in a dynamic fashion. So what data am I going to show you today? So this is a picture taken a week or so ago of my son's floor upstairs. He collects magic cards, and it's a trading card game, and it's useful for my purposes today because each of the cards, certainly they have great illustrations, fantastic names, sort of traumatic visions. They have lots of data. So there are thousands of these things, and each of the cards has sort of various numbers on, and different dimensions as well that we can look at. So at the bottom, we've got the artist's name who sort of creates the artwork for each of the cards. And most importantly, there's an API that we can hook into in Qlik and pull the data out. So I always find it's very difficult to find data for presentations, because obviously you capture customer data and you don't want it to be people distracted by the data more than what you're saying. So I thought this was a good data set to use. So if you like Magic the Gathering, the card game, the next 10 minutes you're going to find it incredibly exciting. I hope everyone else finds it somewhat interesting as well. Okay. So I'm running this on QlikSense Business, so hoping that everything's going to go my way with regards to it all being up and running. So here's the thing I wanted to pass on to Patrick, is the aspect ratio on the icons that we've got here isn't the same between your thumbnail on the hub to the thumbnail you have on the application here. So you have to have an aspect ratio which works for both, or quite often it works for neither. So I don't get why those two aren't the same aspect ratio. So just want to
bring it back with me. I know Göran Sanders has commented this early also for the Windows Hub and the apps.
Yeah, and it's changed between versions as well at different times. So you get all your icons just right, and then from one release to the next, it's slightly different. It just throws it all out, which is fine for most people. But if you're OCD like me about things like that, it just really messes with your head. So anyway, so logo aside, this is the application. So I'll just go through quite quickly what I've put in here. So we start off with a sheet of KPIs. All the font size is roughly the same, as you say, from the previous presentation, because all the numbers are reasonably similar. It's not, as I mentioned earlier, what I would say is a great front screen for an application. But I've made the application so it can be lifted and shifted into any sort of previous version of Sense. So everything will work way back with versions. So it's picked out 8 expressions and trends those over, in this case, years. So you get your sort of very sort of helicopter view of a few measures. And then we've got 6 of those expressions done over a number of dimensions. So we've got sort of 6 dimensions here with the same expression. Now I meant to reload the data, so we didn't have the scariest creature in there because it's a complete outline, it throws everything. So we just removed that. Yeah, when you've got a card called the scariest creature you'll ever see, you know you're playing a good game. And this one also throws things out a bit. Anyway, so we've got many expressions by the one dimension, and then obviously flipping that around, we've got the same expression. So this is just a count of cards by a number of dimensions, so 6 different dimensions, but only one expression. And then a scatter. So we've got cards and unique cards. So this is where they publish the same card with, say, a number of different illustrations, and relatively one-to-one, but there are some cards which get pushed out with the same name, multiple illustrations that get counted differently. I'll come back to this sheet in a minute. This has got the map on there. Obviously, the magic cards, they don't come from specific countries, so it doesn't work with the maps, but I'll show that when I've got different data loaded in a minute. We have trends. So here we're looking by year. And then year on year. Again, this data set doesn't work particularly well with year on year. It's quite sporadic, so they don't release cards every month. So we don't have lines going through these, but we can see multiple years plotted month on month. And then 2 expressions on the same axis. And again, we're seeing that delta between unique cards and cards which have got reprints with different artwork. Then line chart with a dimension. So we have one expression broken down by multiple dimensions. A pivot, which can now do a bit more styling on. And finally, at the back end, we've got a table which has got 6 dimensions and 6 measures. And obviously you can export that and do whatever we want with. Also got my data profiler in the application. Now you might have seen this one. I've published it on Qlik Community, and there's a blog post about how to create it already on the blog, which I highlighted earlier. And this sits over any data set that you've got in Sense. It pulls the fields out from the dollar field table and lists those, and you can select any field, and it gives you a count of number of times those values appear. And obviously you can then make selections within each of those fields. Now I've just gone through that very quickly, and all, as I said, pretty standard, would work in old versions of Sense, not going to set the world on fire from a design point of view. But what this does, if we go right back to the start with our KPIs screen, on here we've got a drop down of expressions, and the expressions which are being shown on the front are the first 8 from this list. If I sort of scroll down to the end here and start picking other expressions from the end, and you can see the KPIs filling out as I select these expressions. So they're sort of moving along as they fill up. So they always appear in the same order from start to end. If you've got more selected than the space for it, just bumps them off the end. So these trend charts aren't particularly interesting. Let's bump those off. And so we can select the expressions here, and we can also swap the dimension on the smart lines. So we can go by month instead. So everything here is selectable. That carries through onto all of the other sheets as well. So here is the chart that I showed, where we have a single dimension, and the first 6 expressions, we can pick which dimension we're using. So we can look by rarity, for example, and all the charts change. Just to show under the hood a bit on how that's happening, we've got the data loaded then with what the dimensions are. And we've got a master dimension, which is a selected one. Uses a variable, and the variable in turn is loading using a bit of set analysis to get the first sorted dimension from the list. So whenever you pick one, or if you pick multiple, it will get the first alphabetic. Where we've then got a number of different dimensions. If you can make it as well, Patrick, so you can close that dialog box without having to first editing the variable, that'd be nice. Thanks.
Honestly, we talked about it yesterday.
So if we carry on through, where we've got 6 different dimensions. Obviously, I've just got one selected here. So it's doing very similar on each of these charts, and each of them has a variable with a number passed in for which chart it is. So this is using the ability to pass a parameter into a variable, which is something that you can do, you might not be aware of. Just show you the variable as well. So we've got dim n. The parameter is $1, and that arrives into the variable, and each chart does roughly the same thing, but for a different dimension. Again, that's on my blog. There's a post about passing variables and parameters into variables, and it's actually written a few years back about QlikView, but as you're probably aware, most of what you can do in Sense is possible back in QlikView. So a lot of the blog posts which were written many years ago for QlikView, you can use for Sense. And so every sheet it went through, we've got the ability to pick 2 different expressions on here. So if you want power versus toughness, let's do that. And you can then also change the dimension. So here we can pick dimensions and expressions. We can look by types of cards, type of set, and view those. That is just something I'm going to ignore. But when we're looking at the trending, again, we've got different types here. And that follows all. Actually, I didn't comment on this sheet much. So this is comparing 2 expressions over time in each case. And we've got 4 different charts. One is plotting them on the same axis. So if we've got 2 which are on the similar scale, 0 to 10, and then we're averaging them, they plot against each other. If we have, say, an absolute and a percentage, so let's take number of cards versus how many are mythic. Obviously, our mythic line is just going to hook the bottom. So we've also got this chart, which is showing it with the 2 axes. So we've got absolute number here and the percentage there. And then we've got ratio, one number over the other, and also the difference of one number minus the other. Now, in any particular case, one of these four charts is going to be the one that you're likely to want to look at. You think about using a container, but each chart doesn't need to be that big, and also, as I said, I wanted this to be able to work in very old versions of Sense as well. I didn't want to sort of have to say that you need this version of Sense to be able to make use of the app. Trending, obviously, you can change dimension, and the pivots, you can pick both sets of dimensions. And following through, and you probably guessed what was going to happen on this sheet already. Here you can pick any number of dimensions, so one or more, and you can fill that out. Obviously, as you get more dimensions, there's more unique rows, and you can pick how many expressions you have on there as well. So you can build out the table you have here. Now, I've seen lots of people doing similar in QlikView and also on Sense, and lots of solutions on Community, and I've sort of answered the question as to how to do this on Community a number of times. But I think it's the first time I've seen it all pulled together into one application. So just to show you what's driving this application, we have a spreadsheet which has the dimensions that are available, and these are on the main dimension drop-down, and then the trend dimensions, so which dates are available in the data. All of these are sort of continuous rather than think month name. It's sort of also the date that will trend. The pivot dimensions is a subset of dimensions, because if you've got a sort of reasonably unique ID, you don't want to be having that as a pivot dimension where you've got sort of thousands of entries. So these are all the fields where there's a finite number of values. Obviously, month is at the top of there, so that's the most likely thing you're going to want to pivot by. But we've got things like rarity and set type as well. And this all sort of tracks back onto the app maps. Also, we've got all the different locations that we're allowing to plot. And then, obviously, the expression drop-down is populated from here as well. So we've got the expression names as they appear in the drop-downs, and we also have the code behind it and the number format. So depending on the expressions you pick, the formatting of the number is changed automatically. Okay, so
are you able to show us the data that's driving this real quickly? I think we've got 7 or 8 minutes left.
Yep.
I'm interested in if that's in a sort of standard structure, so that you can, for example, put client data in there or somebody else's data and then feed this app with that. Actually,
it's a very good point, George. I'm glad you raised it. So this is a single table. It's actually coming from the API. So the app has in it, let me clear the selection before we do this. A connection to the Magic API in here, but it comes in as a single table. And that's quite important because it will work over sort of bigger data models with many tables. But obviously, you're giving the user the ability to pick any dimension that you have and any expression. And it may well be that if you have a more complicated data model, that not every expression will work with every dimension. And I didn't want to have or promote apps that allowed the user to create things which didn't work. But that does then raise the question about self-service in its entirety and having master dimensions and master expressions. And there's no way of telling users which measures go with which dimensions and which one will break if you use them in certain combinations. I did think of having a matrix in the spreadsheet to say that these dimensions will work with these expressions and these won't, so I sort of tick of sort of indices, but I haven't gone that far with it. But the beauty of this app is, you know, I'm staying in the one app here. I'm just going to come to my main sheet, change my lookup sheet name here, so MTG from Magic to NSH, which this is actually a data set we used for a farmer competition that we entered in. So we have the national superheroes, just a quick switch on the initials, and that was our presentation. Going to take the Magic data out of here, move the NSH data up into its place. So this is just doing straight load from two QVDs. Maps is empty, and then we load the dimensions and the expressions. This is just stopping it loading the data after, so I can move them around, and then load that. Still love it when you see 3 million rows loaded like that. Brilliant. Never get tired. So it's still saying in exactly the same app. When I come back to analyze, all of the filters along the top here are driven from the first 8 values in the dimension sheet. All of these, all the values in the table are driven from there as well. And let's go back to the start with the KPIs. All the measures in here are based on that new data. So the one app can be taken, cloned, new metadata loaded, new data set loaded, and it just works out of the box. Just to go back, as I said I would earlier, to the map. This is now showing different primary care organisations, and we can swap from those to different regions, and the map will flex to show the different areas. So I appreciate running tight on time, and do want to have some time for questions, so I will leave it there. Finally, to show the trending against month looking a lot neater than it does on the Magic app, because the data here is 2 years worth of data and it sits much cleaner. So yeah, that's the app. I'm going to paste a link into the chat, so you can go download this app. Just ask for your email address so we can keep in touch, send you information about updates. And yeah, it'd be great to hear how people get on with the application and what you can do with it. We'll probably go for a sort of a wider sort of publication of it at some point, but for today, it's just for people who are on the chat at the moment.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
That was excellent. And I must say your pixel perfect sheets are very OCD, but they do look great.
Oh, thank you.
I think there was only one question that I could see from the chat. There was lots of general feedback that you're welcome to look at in your own time. I don't know if you can maybe go back into the KPI sheet, please. There was a question from Utam just about how the KPI values were working with the selected expressions. In here, it's just describe how this actually works behind the scenes in terms of how you're controlling which KPI is made visible by expression selection.
Yeah, so it's exactly the same as the bar charts where I showed the variable with the parameter, but you can select the expressions here, first 3, and behind this there is a variable, expression number 3, and also we've got expression legend number 3. And expression n. Actually, there's a bit more preamble around this, but what's actually doing the work is here. and it's passing in a number, so in this case 3, and saying find the third sorted expression from the list. So if you remember our spreadsheet, we've got a list of expressions, they're numbered on the way in. Find the third sorted, and then get the min string, loads that out of the list here. So it will find the third one, gets it out as a string. That's then returned back into the KPI as a string, and then the string is executed within the KPI, and you get the result. So yeah, hopefully that made some kind of sense.
Yeah, I guess the answer is to download your app after the event and investigate the code. And I think if they've got questions, they can come back and ask.
To an extent, yeah, that's why we got obviously the limited rollout to people on the call, and it does say provided without warranty or support. But right at the top of my slides on the Qlik Geek, if someone asks me a technical question, I am most likely going to answer. So yeah. Actually, what I can do here is just drop on a text box, and then I hope this works because it's going on the fly. If we take the expression from here, what this variable is doing at the end of the day is going to return this as the expression comes out in a string. It says, that's why you shouldn't try and do things on the fly on a demo. But it does return the expression, and that then gets executed. Let's put it as a measure now. So there's the expression behind it coming back from here, which is then executed by the KPI.
Nothing beats a text object.
Absolutely, best debugging tool there is. Forget the little bug thing in the load script. Just stick a text box in, give it a look.
That's great, Steve.
I thought you were going to go all Brian Munce on us there, Steve, on the main stage. Everything was just going to collapse for you at the end, but you fought through it well. The text object not doing what you expected it to. I like that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what people make of it. And I think all the components I've already put on the blog, but it's the first time to put it all into one app and made it available. I've had sort of various things that I've used on client sites like this before. But yeah, quite often find myself sort of building it from scratch. So even though it's on encode, I sort of copy and paste things piecemeal. But now have sort of used this a number of times for sort of proof of concepts. And it's great for a quick prototype to get people thinking about what they might want to see from the data. And then once they've seen that, you can then start building the application proper. I wouldn't advocate this as sort of being the end product. It's just part of the journey.
Good stuff. Yep.
I like how you got that in, that it's not a production environment thing, it's a proof of concept thing, and that's a really important distinction to be made for anyone that is new to Qlik or QlikSense, that certain types of apps are used for certain types of things, and I think as a profile tool, this is a fantastic launching point to get people into using QlikSense in the right way. So there's a lot of best practice in there as well, and I think that's very valuable too.
Oh, thank you. But it's something we said, the seeing is believing sort of approach that Qlik have had in their sort of marketing. They think you get put under a hammer to deliver something in half a day or a day, where you haven't seen the data at all beforehand. You don't have the time to have the conversations about what the end product is, but you go in and you build something all the same. And what you do under pressure in that half a day to get something built, there's going to be shortcuts. And the temptation then is just to build on that and to grow it out to be the production thing. And actually, you should just always bin whatever you do on that first day. Actually, it's like the QlikSense thing. So you have it there. It's like, this is what we did in half a day. Now, what can we borrow from that when we do it properly?
It's sage advice, and something else that we could probably talk about in a completely separate session for most of the day. But That was brilliant, Steve. Thanks very much for taking the time and showing it again. I know you're one of the ones that got VED and VED and bank holiday on your mind as well. So we've just got a couple more things to mention, and we can let everyone away for the day. But that was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Right. Yeah, I hope you can agree that was two brilliant speakers that we've had today. So we just want to quickly wrap up the meeting so that everyone can get on to their weekend at the end of the day. Our next meetup. So we are running every 2 weeks. If you've been here before, you probably know this by now. We're running every second Friday. We do have, as George mentioned earlier, we do have a huge pool of speakers. I think we're up to like 40 to 50 speakers now that we have lined up. So this is something that's going to just keep on running as far as people want us to. So episode 4 is coming. Episode 4 is on Friday the 22nd of May at the same time. That is obviously just TBC over the next week or so, but we don't see any problems with that happening at the moment. And 2 more like incredible keynote speakers. I know we say that every week, but we do feel that the caliber of speakers that we're bringing is really high quality. First person that we have is Jordan Morrow. So Jordan kind of serves a dual role. He's the global head of data literacy at Qlik, but he also has a very prominent role on the data literacy project and on the advisory board. He's also done some really cool things with Kate Strachney recently as well, with their kids' data literacy book as well. So we're really excited to have Jordan come and tell us a bit more about the detailed strategy of data literacy at Qlik as well. I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about data literacy as a service too, and that's become a big thing recently. Our second speaker, you might actually not know his name as well as Jordan's, but we've got Oleg Troyansky, who is one of the presenters at the Qlik Masters Summit, which tours the globe. You probably know names like Barry Harmson, Rob Wunderlich, Bill Lay, people like that go around and do the Masters Summit. So Oleg has also written several great books and technical authored on several great books as well. So we're very lucky to have a performance session from Oleg as well. I think it's called Common Performance Pitfalls and How to Avoid Them. So for those technical ones amongst you, you'll not be wanting to miss that. And I think we've got quite an inside track on lots of the Masters Summit guys as well, actually. So you can expect to see more of them in the future. I'll sort of let Andrew and George talk a little bit about that just for a few seconds before we finish up. But you can register for QVMS EP4. George has popped the links in there already. I think I saw them flashing up. Apart from that, really, it's just to say if you could fill in the survey if you're new to the episodes, that'd be great for us. And again, I'd just like to pass it over to George and Andrew for a few words as well, just to say thank you. George?
Yeah, both to Patrick and Steve, thank you very much for your time today. This was fantastic. I will be following up with both of you just to do this customary thanks for your time. But yeah, the questions also, we're going to pull them together. We don't actually have a central place to put all these, but I do feel some kind of central blog coming along so that we can pull together all of these questions, the previous session recordings, and the future sign-up links. Yeah, we're only in our third week or our third session, so we have a little bit more organising and planning to do. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, everybody, and also everybody that attended and gave up part of your Bank Holiday Friday. Thank you. Andrew?
Thanks, George. Yeah, absolutely. Just repeat everything the guys have said. Thank our 2 speakers, both awesome guys. Interestingly, Stephen Redmond, I've noticed, is in the chat room, and he didn't ask any questions about why you're not showing pie charts in your presentations, but that's a separate conversation you can pick up in Lund maybe this year. So thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. We are again doing a reasonable job of running to time. We're only about 3 minutes over from what we were hoping. So all that remains is to wish you a fantastic bank holiday weekend. Stay isolated, stay safe, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for Jordan and Oleg. Thanks everyone for coming. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Steve. That was really cool. Good job.
No worries. No worries. Been meaning to do a sort of one of the meetups for a while, and like I say, it's not as sort of technical as interesting. There's the stuff that I go and see at these things, but yeah, hopefully useful and interesting for people.
Well, I think so. And we're always here to give people a shove who have ideas that they want to present, but maybe they don't feel that they're ready, because this is the ideal platform for it, really. Not just QVMS, but all of these virtual meetups is a great opportunity for people to show their stuff. And you know, we're just here to organise. We're just here to put the construct in place so that people can do that. So it's great to have such big names as yourself, and obviously, you know, Jordan and Oleg, another two massive big hitters for the next episode as well. So.
Yeah, I think it's happening in all sorts of things. That the lockdown is actually encouraging stuff. I'm just going to far more gigs than I've ever got to. On the telly, but you know, it's still live music, and it's great.
Well, I'll say cheerio just now, guys. I've got a quick changeover, so thanks everyone. Thanks George and Andrew.
Okay.
I'll catch you guys later. I'll stop the recording if that's okay with everyone. I think we've got all the.
Good with me. I'm going to have to drop off as well.
Yeah. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Speak soon. Cheers.